Halloween 2018. 2018. So there's a reason we need to call this 2018. Bizarrely enough, Halloween 2018 is a sequel to the original Halloween made in 1978. 40 years after the original, ignoring all of the other Halloween films. There was like 35 of them since 1978. We're ignoring all of them and we're making a sequel directly after the first one, which is fine. But the thing is, it's going to get really confusing because now you've got Halloween 1978, you've got Halloween 2018, and you've got Halloween the remake, the one that Rob Zombie directed. So you've got three Halloweens with the same title. So it's going to get seriously confusing. Surely they could have come up with something to add to the title, or something a little bit different or unique. Why would you just call it Halloween? So that's confusing right from the start, but the title doesn't necessarily make the film. The film could be fabulous. We're going to talk about the film in a second. So like I mentioned, this one is a direct sequel to the first one from 1978. Laurie is full-on paranoid. It's 40 years later. She's taken this time to train herself in firearms, shooting. She's shooting dummies in her backyard. She's living in a high security type house. She's got like a massive fence, and she's built traps and a cellar in her house where all these guns and weapons are. She's getting ready. She knows that Michael is going to be coming for her. She hasn't stopped being paranoid. She had a daughter at some stage after the first one. Obviously, this is 40 years later, so there's a lot of backstory that we just learn watching this film. She's had a daughter, and she has a daughter of her own. So Laurie is a grandmother. Unfortunately, her daughter excludes her from family events and kind of thinks her mother is just crazy, and she brought her up. Laurie brought up her daughter being paranoid as well, and training her up and doing all sorts of weird things because she was just so paranoid of Michael coming to kill her family that Social Security came and took away Laurie's daughter, and she was brought up differently. So obviously the daughter thinks that the grandmother, Laurie, is nuts, and Laurie is just getting ready because she knows. We all know how creepy Michael is. You know, we've had all those other films which we're supposed to ignore. We know he's dangerous and you cannot stop him. You can't kill him. You can't stop him. What's bizarre is he's been waiting 40 years to escape. Like, when we first see Michael at the start of the film, he's going to be interviewed by a couple of podcasters or journalists or something like that. It's a gigantic man who's just very quiet, but his treating doctor says that he's well aware of his surroundings. And then on Halloween night, 40 years after the original film, he decides he was being transported from this mental facility to another one and ends up overpowering the driver. We don't see all this happen. It kind of just cuts to a scene where the bus is tipped over that's transporting these loonies, these patients from the mental asylum, and obviously Michael escapes. Now, why he waited 40 years to do this, not like a 5 or 10 year anniversary, I don't know. And it's a little bit bizarre, and maybe unrealistic or unbelievable, that Laurie, after 40 years, still is so tense, so on edge, and so crazy paranoid. After 40 years, wouldn't you kind of be a little bit more relaxed after 40 years and believe that maybe the dust has settled and Michael ain't going to be escaping? But needless to say, it is the movie world, so we just need to sort of brush away that ultra-realism stuff aside for the time being. So he escapes, and Laurie, who's like really keeping tabs on Michael, she already knew that he was being transported. She's full-on paranoid. She's probably calling the hospital every day. She knew he was being transported. She was actually outside that insane asylum or the hospital with a gun, drinking vodka, like obviously a mental nervous wreck, and she wanted to, I don't know, maybe kill Michael right there and then. Either way, didn't happen, and unfortunately for her, she probably should have, because after the bus takes off, Michael overpowers the driver somehow and escapes. So Michael is on the loose. And of course, he's back in town, and it's almost like he's got some sort of connection with Laurie, because he's just like, it's like he's drawn to her. He can feel her. So I won't sort of reveal too much about the movie and give too many spoilers, but he ends up at a service station And the two journalists that were trying to interview him at the very start of the film, one of them brought Michael's old mask, which looks really good in this film. Some of the films looked disastrous. The mask looked just absolutely laughable. It was very childish-like, or it was just too fake-looking. I don't know. This one is creepy. It looks worn, like it's, obviously had a bit of wear and tear through the years. It looks good. And Michael arrives at this rest stop or gas station, petrol station, whatever you want to call it. The two journalists are there, so the mask is somewhere in their car. He takes out the journalists. He takes out the gas people at the gas station, gets those overalls, those famous overalls from the gas station, and then boom, goes to the car and gets his mask, baby. So Michael Myers, fully decked out in his original attire, looks nice and creepy. He's ready to go to town. And that's what he does. He goes to town trying to take out Laurie. Now, the film at this stage was good. Like, I was really enjoying it. I think and there's so many good aspects about this movie, but it does have several weaknesses. One of them being, something that I didn't fully understand or accept was there wasn't enough Laurie, not enough Jamie Lee Curtis. Like, she's obviously the backbone behind the film. The whole story about how she's so paranoid and what she went through in 40 years, that's the interesting part. This is what the sequel's all about. What happened in that 40 years time, and what she's done to prepare, the experiences that she's had. We don't get enough Laurie, I don't think. Instead, for some odd reason, the film decides to focus on Laurie's granddaughter, her daughter's daughter, who's going to some stupid high school dance. So they waste all this time on this dance with teenagers and love interests and Laurie's granddaughter's boyfriend making out with some other girl or kissing some other girl, and they have a big fight, and then one of the granddaughter's friends comes to her aid, and there's like all this time spent with teenagers. It almost felt like a teen flick for a while. This is an R18 plus movie. This is supposed to be horror, back to the roots of Halloween, back to the original terror. But I think there was a little bit too much nonsense going on in the storyline with teenagers that we couldn't care less about. It's definitely a waste of time. I think there should have been a little bit more Jamie Lee, a little bit more Laurie in the movie, and what happened during those 40 years as well. So I did lose interest when it focused on the teenagers there for quite some time, and there was definitely a lot going on with Laurie, which they could have worked more with rather than doing all that teenager rubbish. On to the kill scenes, which, none of them seem very original or very well thought out. I can think of other films that do very, very similar kills. Even in the Halloween series, like, I know we're supposed to forget about the other Halloween movies, but come on. Make up your own kills. Be clever. Be original. A lot of them were just really not that interesting at all. It's actually not that gory or violent of a film, I didn't think. Sure, there's a couple brutal kills, but nothing really that bad. I think this probably could have been an MA movie, if anything. It didn't really suit the R18 plus gore factor for me, or the violence factor. And the fact that these teens are in the movie, it did almost feel like a teen movie. It probably could have got away with an MA rating. I just think it could have been a lot more brutal. That's definitely for sure. There is homage to the original, which I really liked in the classroom. You look out the classroom window, and then creepily, Michael is there standing in his overalls and his creepy mask. That was pretty awesome. There's also a couple bits that just don't make sense in the movie. There's one part where Michael's walking down the street in his overalls and his mask after killing someone, and a cop car just pulls out in front of him. Does he lack intelligence that much? Like, Michael's supposed to be a silent killer. You're not supposed to really see him. He like, you blink and he's gone. So why would he be walking the street, sees a cop car and doesn't try and get out of the way? It doesn't make sense. I don't want to reveal too much about what happens during that scene, because there is a big twist during that bit. But I just felt like it was just nonsense. Like, you're a killer, and maybe he is just that mental and just walks down the street and doesn't care, or maybe doesn't realise that what he's doing is wrong. I don't know. Like, people have tried to get in the head of Michael and they've failed, so I'm not sure what was going on there. I just found that a little bit silly, definitely. And of course, without revealing too much, no spoilers. I'll do some spoilers at the end. Right at the end of the video, I'll score it and then I'll warn you before I say any spoilers. But Michael obviously gets to Laurie's house and that's where we get the climax, which was okay. Like, it was okay to borderline pretty good, but it just wasn't fantastic. Like, this film, like it sometimes it feels like it's progressing up to there and then it just goes down and then it goes down more and then up there and then down there. Like, it could have been really great, but it just misses the mark many times throughout this film. But having said that, like, this isn't a bad movie. I'll definitely have to watch it again. It's not a bad movie. It's a good movie, but it could have been a great movie. I don't think it's great. It doesn't bring enough originality to it. That's for sure. And there's just too much teenage bullshit nonsense that didn't have to be in the film. This is 40 years, for Christ's sake. There's a lot to catch up on in 40 years. There should be some sort of reason why Laurie's still so paranoid after 40 years. Like I mentioned, surely after 40 years of no history or action or altercations, or Michael didn't escape or anything like that, we're presuming. So why is she so on edge and so paranoid? Like, it's just not that realistic. Maybe there's something more there. Maybe we could have found out a bit more. But they just don't get into it because we spend too much time at this school dance with teenage nonsense. But otherwise, as a hardcore Halloween fan, you should definitely check this one out for sure. As a horror fan, worth a watch. That's definitely 100% guaranteed. But if you're looking for, if your expectations are high, it's probably better to lower them, crank them down a little bit before watching this. Yes, it's a very well-made film, but it could have been a great film had they just made a few little changes and made a few original kills and avoided a few things in the storyline and focused on more Laurie and more of the history behind her in the 40 years of what's driven her to borderline insanity, I suppose you can call it. So on the Bannock scale, the Bannock meter of 13, we'll give Halloween 2018, I think we need to call it. I think we've established that. We'll give Halloween 2018 an 8 out of 13. A solid 8. It could have been very good to great, but we're just going to go with okay to pretty good here with this one. Worth a watch, sure, but go in there and just lower your expectations a little bit. It's not necessarily disappointing, but it is frustrating, I think, is a good way to put this film. Now, onto the spoilers. So, if y'all don't want to hear the spoilers, if you haven't watched this movie yet, then shut the window down now. You've got my thoughts on the film. You've got my overall score there on the Bannock meter. So what are you waiting for? Go check it out, and then let me know in the comments below what you think, whether you agree with me or whether you disagree with me. Either way, that's the beauty about films. There's so many different personalities out there and preferences for people, so like we all like different things. It's a great time to discuss it. Don't hate people for having a different opinion than you or me. You know, embrace it, and maybe it'll make you see something from a different perspective. That's why I love hearing people's opinions. So don't be sure to comment and make sure you like this video if you found it helpful. Now, what happens at the end is Laurie's cellar or basement where all her weapons are kept. It's located in a secret part of, well, there's a secret entrance to her cellar, which is located right under the kitchen bench. So she has like a remote control. The bench moves and you go downstairs. So why, at one stage I didn't realise why, once they were down there safe, hidden away from Michael, I don't understand why the hell Laurie would start shooting from under the floor, trying to kill him from down there. You ain't going to kill Michael from down there. You're hidden away from him. He seems to be ultra stupid in this movie, some of the things that he's done, so he probably wouldn't have found them. Call the cops, call the army, call someone with call Arnold Schwarzenegger with a minigun or something. Make a few phone calls from down there, because everyone's got a cell phone these days. It's 2018. It's Halloween 2018. Why would you give up your location and start shooting the bastard from underneath the floor where you're probably not going to hurt him anyway? You're not going to scratch him. So, Michael figures out how to get down there. Of course, you know, we all saw that coming, especially after you're shooting from under there. But what happens is Laurie's actually rigged that whole downstairs cellar to be a trap. It's not actually supposed to be like a panic room to protect them from Michael. She's actually rigged it as a trap. So these bars come out from the entrance and Michael's trapped in there like kind of like a jail cell. There's like these bars that come across. And the whole entire cellar is rigged with these little gas nozzles. So she just triggers a switch and then all gas starts pouring out all around the house, not just in that cellar. And then she lights a flare, throws it down, gets the hell out of there. Her daughter and the granddaughter all escape the house at this time in the end. And then boom, we don't see Michael die. We never see Michael die. So obviously Michael didn't die, where you would assume that Michael is going to survive this. He always survives. Doesn't matter what you do. You can put his head in a blender and he'll be back. So even though we're presuming that Michael might have met his fate, but we don't ever see the body, so we're not 100% sure. We're going to have to wait for the sequel. I'm pretty sure there will be one. But the interesting thing is, after her entire house is burnt down, that they flag down a passerby truck and they hitch a ride to, you know, out of getting the hell out of there, in other words. So they're on the back of this truck or this ute, this pickup wagon, and we noticed that the granddaughter, I think, was her name Allison? I think her name was Allison, has like the big Halloween Michael Myers knife in her hand, shining there all creepily in the moonlight. And it kind of gives us the interpretation that maybe she now has this killer instinct and she might have the psycho killer gene that Michael Myers possesses as well. After all, she is related through blood to Michael Myers. So maybe the sequel is going to be super interesting. Maybe Michael Myers is dead and Allison, the granddaughter, is going to take over. We don't know, but that's how it ends. Very creepily with that knife, that big Michael Myers knife there. Hope y'all enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe. Leave me a comment down below. I'll be back real soon with some more content. Love you all. See you again real soon.